Join Yvette Walker every Tuesday at 4 o'clock p.m. on KMET ABC News Radio, 1490 AM, FM 98.1, and Internet KMET TV for the Southern California Business Report. The show is dedicated to highlighting successful businesses and the individuals behind them. Yvette interviews the incredible people managing these enterprises that range from awe-inspiring sole proprietors to world-renowned organizations. The Southern California Business Report, Tuesdays at 4 o'clock p.m. Welcome to KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio and the Southern California Business Report with Yvette Walker, a show dedicated to highlighting successful Southern California businesses and the people behind them.
Welcome and thank you for joining the Southern California Business Report on ABC News and Talks, KMET 1490 AM, 98.1 FM, and KMET TV. I'm Yvette Walker, live, blasting our signal from the center of Southern California, serving a population of over 25 million. Get us crystal clear and on demand by downloading the free KMET live streaming app on Google Play or the Apple App Store. A huge shout out to the team, as always, Mitch, Bill, and Sean. I love you. And to our special advisory committee, Bill Morris of UCI School of Business, Joe and Camila Rubio. Thank you so much. Don't forget to check out the Jay Kaplan Show also on KMET on Fridays at 3. Today, I have the distinct privilege and overwhelming honor to be introducing to you Mr. Theodore Ted Alejandre. He is the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools with an update on the county's efforts to lead families and a student base of nearly 500,000 students with cutting-edge resources and award-winning program. San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, Ted Alejandre, began his 4-year term as the county's 34th superintendent after being elected to office in June of 2014. He ran for the county's lead educational seat unopposed in 2018 and began his second 4-year term in January 2019. With more than 3 decades of experience in public education, Mr. Alejandre has served in several positions at the school site and district levels, including Assistant Superintendent of Business Services and the Yucaipa-Calimesa Joint Unified School District. He joined county schools in 2008 as the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services and later was appointed Deputy Superintendent overseeing all operations of the organization. As County Superintendent, Mr. Alejandre works collaboratively with educators, families, other agencies, and stakeholders to provide advocacy, leadership, and services for and on behalf of more than 406,000 K-12 students attending public schools in San Bernardino County. Mr. Alejandre is a retired U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel serving since 1984. He received his associate degree in administrative management from the Community College of the Air Force, his bachelor's degree in public administration, and master's in educational administration from Cal State University, San Bernardino. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Alejandre.
Thank you so much, Ben. It's great to be here today and talk about such a critical subject, and that being education for our youth in San Bernardino County.
Absolutely. Thank you for all that you do. But before we jump in, as you know, one of the first questions I ask our guests is to take us down the path of how you were able to make it to become the superintendent of San Bernardino County Schools and what motivated you to take that journey.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be happy to. I was born and raised in San Bernardino. I've lived here all my life in San Bernardino County. I grew up in the city of San Bernardino and then spent the last 21 years in Yucaipa City. And it's a journey for me that I tell young people all the time, you never have a linear journey. There's always twists and turns in that journey forward, but to always keep moving forward, giving 100% in everything you do. And so for me, after graduating from high school, I actually delivered a newspaper for 7 years to customers in the north end of San Bernardino, and I got a newspaper scholarship. And that allowed me to go to Cal State San Bernardino right after high school. But like some students, it was difficult. It was hard for me to really have that focus. And so I decided that I really needed to get deep experience and some discipline in the way I approach things that I wanted to set as goals. And so I enlisted into the Air Force and was stationed at Norton Air Force Base. And like every enlisted member, you have to go through your career courses to develop certain skill levels that are required for the position that you hold. And once I did that, I really had this discipline within me where I felt I could do both, be active duty in the military and then go to Cal State at night. And so I did that, and I earned my bachelor's degree in public administration. And when I completed my active duty tour, I decided to stay in the reserves. So I did that all the way up until 2019 when I retired after 34 years. But when I completed that first 4-year active duty tour, I had my first position in public schools working in Rialto Unified. And I was actually working in accounting as an account clerk, and then I became a fiscal analyst. And I thought business was the area I was going to move into on a long-term basis. But being around educators, which are phenomenal people, I had a lot of encouragement from people to go into teaching. My mother-in-law was an educator, and she encouraged me to go into teaching. People I worked with in Rialto encouraged me to go to teaching. So I started to go do some observations in classrooms out in Rialto, and I was fascinated in the work a teacher did. And I decided to pursue my teaching credential, and I received a credential in multiple subjects and got my first teaching position teaching 4th and 5th grade in the San Bernardino City Unified School District. And I'll tell you, it is an incredible experience being with young people, seeing how eager they are to learn, really trying to get them as far as you can in the skills that they're developing, particularly with math and language arts and reading and all the other content areas. And while I was doing that, I had a principal. His name was Jim Marinas, and he was a great individual. And I always tell young people, when you give 150%, people notice it. And pretty soon they'll start coming to you and saying, hey, are you interested in doing this? Because they see you as someone they can take a different role. And my principal at the time told me, he said, you're working on your master's because when you're a teacher, you have to get your professional clear credential. And that usually means going for a master's degree. And so for my principal, he said, you should get your master's degree in administrative services, in educational administration, because you would be a great principal. And I said, really? I didn't see that in myself, but he did. And I did pursue my master's degree in educational administration and received it. And then he encouraged me, you should apply. And so I applied for a vice principal's position, and I was selected. And I couldn't believe it, but I was nervous. I was a little hesitant, but I was also excited and eager to start that journey. And so I became a vice principal at the elementary level for 2 years, and then was selected for principal. I was the elementary principal for 7 years, and then I went up to the middle school level and was a middle school principal for 2 years. And the school district I was in felt that I had an ability that they saw where I could really use resources to maximize student achievement and do it in a collaborative way, bringing teachers into the process so we can all work together to determine what's the best way to use the dollars that you're allocated from public funds to make sure students grow. And the district felt that I did that really well. So I was selected to become the director of business services. And I was over all the budgets for all the schools and all the departments. And the goal was to really work with principals so they can look at their areas of priority and leverage their resources to make a big difference for students. And I enjoyed doing that tremendously. And at the time, I was living in Yucaipa, and a position became open in Yucaipa as assistant superintendent for business services. Another thing I tell young people is you'll build a network of individuals throughout any career you're in. And so some of the people I work closely with in San Bernardino were now in Yucaipa-Calimesa. And so I received encouragement from them to say, hey, Ted, you should apply for this position in Yucaipa-Calimesa. You would be an excellent assistant superintendent. And I was encouraged, and so I decided to do that. I was selected for assistant superintendent there in Yucaipa and oversaw the business operations in Yucaipa-Calimesa. And I loved the community in Yucaipa. I loved working with all the stakeholders in the community. We did great things for students. And being in that role, I would attend county meetings on a regular basis because the chief business official for county schools works with all the chief business officials for all the 33 districts in our county. And so I would attend those meetings regularly because I wanted to be kept informed on all the things that were taking place throughout the county and state initiatives that were going on, so that I'd be kept up to date on all of those and make sure that I could properly communicate to my superintendent and the board I was serving. And so by doing that, I became very close to the county chief business official, Gary Thomas, who became county superintendent. And once he became county superintendent, I was encouraged to apply for his position. I did so, became the chief business official for San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools. And one of the things that I enjoyed so much in this role was getting to work with all the school districts in the county. It was in the area of business services, but nevertheless, one thing I tell individuals that are familiar with schools in general, I would say in our county we have 33 districts, and they're all unique. They all have different priorities, but the one common thing that all school districts have is that they have a passion to serve their students and their communities. And I saw that right away coming into county schools, and really enjoyed working with them on the business side of the house. And when Dr. Thomas retired as county superintendent, many people encouraged me to become the county superintendent. This is an elected position, so it's different than a district superintendent where you're appointed by the board. In this position, you have to run for during the election and get elected by the voters. And so many people encouraged me to do that. I wasn't sure because I never really considered to go into politics or into an elected role. But because of that encouragement, I did so in 2014, the June election, and was just overwhelmed by the support we received, and was very fortunate to get elected by the voters in 2014, and have been serving this capacity ever since. And
right. I was going to say unopposed in 2018 also.
Yes, I was very, very thankful for that. And I've loved being in this position. And up until the time I became superintendent, from the time I was teaching up until that time, I was also in the military in the reserves at March Air Reserve Base. In fact, when I was teaching fourth grade during Desert Storm, I was activated to go back on active duty. Wow. And had to leave my teaching position for almost a year. Our group was deployed out to Japan for a while, and that conflict ended fairly short. It was fairly short overall. So I was released from active duty, came back into the classroom, and continued while still being in the reserves. And then at March Air Reserve Base, I was in the 701st Combat Operations Squadron, a squadron that had a unique mission. We were an air operations center, the first in the Air Force, and we had to deploy out to South Korea every year. And I enjoyed doing that, but when I became elected, I really had to control my schedule more to make sure I was committed to the people here in San Bernardino County. And so in my role as county superintendent, I just loved serving the communities, working with districts, and really supporting their educational priorities.
I mean, your enthusiasm is absolutely contagious, and your heart of service is very clear in every one of your efforts as I'm hearing you speak, and the fact that you were able to run again unchallenged in 2018, and I foresee that being the case for the very distant future. So let's jump into the innovative approaches that you have been utilizing through the San Bernardino County Board of Superintendents of Schools to engage student engagement. I know we had a little lull there in 2020, 2021. There were a lot of challenges, but what are you doing today to enhance that engagement?
These are historic times, and about 8 years ago now, the state of California went to local control for school districts, and so district boards have the authority to utilize those dollars in the way they feel are most important for their communities. And like I mentioned, every district has unique priorities. So what may be a top priority in Needles may be different than Upland or Chino, Colton, or RIM, Bear Valley, or any one of our other districts. And so what we've really tried to do is support districts with their highest priorities. And with students, we have many things we do at the county office to get students engaged, like our student events, for example. We have many of our districts participate in mock trial, in academic decathlon, in our science and engineering fair, history day. And when we see students engage in those academic events, it's just, while I love athletics, we also have pay attention to the academic events like the ones I mentioned, because students are so involved. And when you go into one of the final competitions, you just see students putting their heart and soul into trying to do their best. And the coaches and all the volunteers and parents that are involved really put forth that support structure to allow students to thrive in those environments, as well as visual and performing arts. Our county has tremendous support for visual and performing arts. And I always ask individuals when I go into communities, have you ever been to our county honor band performance? We just had it this past weekend.
Wow.
And if you've ever been to it, you'll just be amazed at how incredible the students are. When you watch the high school county honor band, you would think you're watching the best professionals on the planet because they are so good. It's at the University of Redlands Chapel once a year. And the musicians and the teachers, everybody involved are just incredible. But we also have a showcase, a performing arts showcase, where every year we invite the districts to submit entries for performing arts, for choir, and for band. And we have that at the California Theater. And students being in that historic environment just get amazed walking on stage, performing to hundreds of people out in the audience. Just a wonderful experience for them. And then recently we had our young artists showcase at Cal State San Bernardino. So you have students involved in art, photography, and sculpting, and all the different areas to express art. And when you look at the stories behind the art and you talk to the students who produce that art, it's just amazing to see what's on their minds, because in our county, we have some of the students with the greatest creativity and brilliance that just comes out in many different ways on the academic side, on the performing arts side, but in any way, what our teachers do on a regular basis, from what I see, is really try to get that out of them so they can really show their best in any area that they're interested in. So our engagement from students is just incredible across the county.
I absolutely love that. And as a former honor band member myself, we're going to have to get you back on so that you can give us more notice and make sure we get as many people out there to listen to that beautiful, those compositions and performances. That kind of took me back. I'm sorry, I digress. But let's talk about how San Bernardino County Board of Superintendent of Schools supports parental involvement, right? Parental involvement is always key to help, home and school to support your efforts and family engagement.
Absolutely. One of the things that came about when the state went to local control for districts to utilize their dollars is that the districts had to produce what's called the Local Control Accountability Plan, LCAP for short. So LCAP is a common term used in school districts. But there's one component of the LCAP, and that's stakeholder engagement part, where districts really have to reach out to get parents to provide input, to respond to what they feel is important for the districts to consider implementing for their children. And I've seen districts be incredibly creative because they want that input. They want to get that involvement from parents. They want to use their budgetary resources to the areas that are the most important and are the top priorities for the communities they serve. And so they'll have meetings, they'll have different types of events. They'll even allow parents to submit online or participate in Zoom meetings. Now, especially now that we're all comfortable with Zoom. So there's many different ways they do it. But based on that stakeholder engagement, then districts match the resources for those top priorities. And at the county level, we have an incredible team. They're just so committed to parent involvement. So we've established a parent engagement network, a family engagement network, where we bring together, the parents from all the different districts into the county level so that we can keep them abreast of some of the strategies and techniques and different ways to help their districts with that input and to engage parents in the process, and to not just have parents, but also other partners from the faith-based community, the nonprofits, the businesses, and the media that's in the cities and the districts that we serve. And because of the priority that we've had with collective impact with our county government, because San Bernardino County has a vision, and that's to make our county the best place to live, work, and play. And one of the top element groups is the education element. So because of that collective impact, where we brought together others to leverage resources and collaborate and support each other, we really want to try to do whatever we can to support districts. And so because of that model and the strength that it has in it, the state, about 4 years ago, selected one county out of the 58 to be the community engagement lead for the entire state, to really build cohorts of best practices and model ways to engage stakeholders. And that county office was San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools. So we became the state lead for that initiative. We partnered with CABE and also Family and Schools, two incredible organizations, to really build that foundation of success and how to reach out and engage parents in the process. So it's been very successful. And because of that, we've just seen growth from parent involvement across our county, so that our parent community is involved in the process and setting those top priorities they have for their students.
I love that. And as you know, when you talk about quality of life, those are some of the first questions people ask before they even buy a home. What are the schools like, right? And so talk about investing into the community and really taking that charge. That just makes me so happy to hear that you were able to take that lead for the state. So can you talk about how you're leveraging business and community partnerships to stimulate engagement even further?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many businesses that are interested in supporting students. And when our students give us their requests, they really want more options, more information. And so we have to expose more industries to them so they know what's out there, what's available. Students, if they come from a family of means, they may have those experiences and those opportunities, but we have 70% plus of our students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, and they haven't had those same experiences, and so they really rely on the school system to provide it to them. And so when we work with business partners, it's just a true partnership so that students can benefit. And one example I'll give you is with Garner Holt Productions. So Garner Holt Productions is based out of Redlands, and Garner Holt produces world-class animatronics that are in place at Knott's Berry Farm, at Disneyland, at theme parks, Chuck E. Cheese. His firm has built those, and he loves to have students involved. So recently we partnered with him and Ryan Raybould, who leads the Education Foundation, to have a 3-day boot camp for students in animatronics. And so you can just imagine a large group of students coming in, and Garner Holt's teams, they're ready to support them. And what Garner Holt produces is this kit, and it just has this bird, this white bird, and then it has materials inside this kit. And so some of the materials are to be creative and artistic, and what do you want the bird to look like? How do you want to design it? And then there's another kit to do the movements of the bird. So the mouth, the neck, the hands, legs, etc. They have to determine how they're going to have that bird do the movement. And then there's another one that produces the sound. So what do you want the bird to say? And what do you want it to do? And so by putting that all together, they build an animatronic. And one young lady who I saw just after 3 days produced this 80s disco bird. So the bird had his eyelashes, his different colors, makeup, and she created that animatronic to really teach a disco aerobics class. And it was such a phenomenal, output. And Garner said, just watching the kids, they have so much talent and so much opportunities for them if they want to pursue that career. But what's most important is the students just see that they have a lot of talent and creativity within themselves to do something they never thought they would probably be able to do. And that could lead them into animatronics. It could lead them into engineering. It could lead them into cyber. It could lead them into many different careers. So the more that we utilize our partners to give students that experience, the more they're going to have opportunities to really explore that, especially when they get into high school and start thinking about, what's next. Because all of our districts are putting graduation as one of the highest priorities, and acceptance into college is as a high priority. But what's really most important is to help students develop their plan the day after graduation. Is it going to be college? Is it going to be community college? Is it going to be military service? Is it going to be working and going to college? It's going to be a combination of different things. But to have students have that confidence that they do have a plan in place and they're ready for it, that's probably one of the most important things we can do for all of our students.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, the key to that is broadening their horizons and introducing them to these things like these animatronics. You have programming, you have mechanics, you have, maybe a remote control part of it or something. It's just phenomenal. And that they're introduced at such a young age, such advanced topics to really pursue things that maybe they wouldn't ordinarily be exposed to in everyday life. Thank you so much for doing that. So what initiatives is San Bernardino County Board of Superintendent of Schools leading to address student achievement?
Oh, that's really important, because one of the parts that was added with this local control that I mentioned earlier was the accountability portion of it. And in the past, students were really judged based on test scores from mathematics and language arts, and that gave a school what was called the API. So you may have heard, what's a school's API? It was a number between 0 to 1,000, 800 was a target, but that model is no longer in place. Many people felt that it really wasn't appropriate to just look at 2 test scores primarily to determine that. So now the dashboard really still includes the academics, but it also includes suspension rates, attendance rates, college and career, and other factors that districts focus on. And so there's also a color grid that says if a district's doing well, they get the top colors. If they're not doing so well, they get colors they have to work on, like red, for example. So what we're doing with districts is to really help them identify the areas they need to work on and what are the reasons behind that. Let's look at the data. Let's look at the information so that we can then determine the root cause. The process is root cause analysis to find out what that root cause is, so then we can then develop the strategies and support systems to help them be successful. And so through this system of supports that we provide to the county office, districts all have different needs. Some districts have asked our team of experts, for example, to do a lot of professional development in the area of mathematics and language arts. And we got tremendous professional developers who know math and language arts so well, they can help teachers implement effective instructional programs so their students can do better in those areas. But other districts have asked us to implement a program that we do for both San Bernardino and Riverside. It's called AVID. So AVID is advancement via individual determination, and it is a program that is incredibly strong in supporting students and really making a difference in their outcomes as they go through their programs at elementary, middle, and high school. And then some have asked us to work on PBIS, which is trying to build positive behavior interventions and supports that deal with social emotional areas that will just help them really build that foundation at the school where every adult makes a positive impact with students. So districts really have to determine.
I love that. I'm sorry, we're going to have to get ready for a break. So for everyone, for those listening, I'm Yvette Walker on Southern California Business Report on ABC News and Talks, KMET 1490 AM, 98.1 FM, and KMET TV, talking to Theodore Ted Alejandre, San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, with an update on the county's efforts to lead families and a student base of nearly 500,000 students with cutting-edge resources and award-winning programming when we return.
Hi, I'm San Bernardino County Sheriff Shannon Dykes. If you're looking to start an exciting career in law enforcement and make a difference in your community, we are hiring dispatchers, nurses, deputies, laterals, and many more. For a complete list of our jobs and more information, visit sheriffsjobs.com.
City of Hope is driven to making a difference in the lives of people with cancer and diabetes. We accomplish this by conducting innovative research and providing outstanding care. If you or a loved one has received a cancer diagnosis, go to cityofhope.org to learn more about how our innovative approach could change your outcome.
Ontario International Airport is onto a better way to fly with over 65 daily nonstop flights to more than 20 major destinations and the easiest airport experience in Southern California. Visit flyonto.com/Ontario to learn more about Ontario International Airport today. The University of La Verne is rated first in California for alumni satisfaction. Learn more about accelerated programs offered online and on campus in La Verne, Irvine, Ontario, Burbank, or College of the Canyons. Visit go.laverne.edu. The University of La Verne. go.laverne.edu.
Every 2 seconds, someone needs a blood transfusion. Be on the giving side. Livestream Blood Bank supports patients in 80 Southern California hospitals. Call 1-800-TRY-GIVING for more information and to set an appointment.
Cal State San Bernardino is home to the only School of Entrepreneurship in California. With globally ranked degree programs, you can start your journey today to become a successful entrepreneur. Learn more and connect at entre.csusb.edu.
Welcome back. For those listening, I'm Yvette Walker on Southern California Business Report on ABC News and Talks, KMET 1490 AM, 98.1 FM, and KMET TV, talking to Theodore Ted Alejandre, San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, with an update on the county's efforts to lead families and a student base of nearly 500,000 students with cutting-edge resources and award-winning programming. Thank you again for being with us, Mr. Alejandre.
Thank you. It's great to be here today.
Beautiful. So before the break, we were talking about, your partnerships to stimulate engagement, how you bring parents into the fold and take their input to really, make sure that they're getting what they want for their students as well. So thank you for that. Let's go on to talk about what college readiness opportunities are being provided by SBCSS at the moment.
Yeah, and that's so important because as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that districts have really prioritized is first making sure students graduate from high school. Mm-hmm. And then second, really trying to get them prepared so they can go into college. One of the things that when you go back 10 years, the A through G courses, those 15 courses that students have to pass to be accepted into and meet the minimum requirements for Cal State and UCR, was only about 27%. So that's been pushed up to over 40% now, but still, there's a lot of work to do to have students meet those minimum criteria. So AVID, which is a program we run for both Riverside and San Bernardino County, is incredible in providing support for students to meet that criteria. So while the average of students that pass A through G now is a little over 40%, if you're an AVID student and you finish your high school senior year as an AVID student, 96% meet that requirement and are ready to go to college. And so we're just really proud of those numbers and the ability for students to do that. But what districts also, as I mentioned earlier, is that they really want students to have a plan. So the community college avenue is an incredible opportunity for students. It's not a huge expense. There's so many ways they can meet their general ed requirements to then transfer into a four-year university. Plus, they can continue their career pathways that they start in high school. So, for example, if a student's in a health pathway in a high school, they can easily transition that into a community college and then to a four-year university. So there's different avenues, and that's why it's so important to give students that information so they're aware of the possibilities for them. You know, in our county, we have a countywide student advisory group that we're in our 7th year of doing. I started that in my 2nd year as county superintendent, and we brought together, pre-COVID, we were up to 400 students from the county. So we invite every single high school in the district, in the county, to select students from their high school to participate. And we do it regionally. So we'll have a high desert group, we'll have an East Valley group, and then a West End group. And when students come into the environment, you can imagine 100 plus students coming into an auditorium. And we may have students, for example, in the West End from some of the high schools in Chaffee, from Fontana, from Upland. And when they come, they're usually with their own high school students. But the first thing we do is we have team building to really mix them all up. And students get to meet each other, and they love it. And they might build a tower of balloons or something creative and fun. And when we ask them what they learned from that experience, they always tell us that, you know, I had some good ideas, but when I met my fellow colleagues here, my fellow students, I really loved their ideas. And together we did so much better. And so once we go through that team building, then they explore the areas of our county's community vital signs, which is health, safety, the economy, and education. And they develop presentations through a PowerPoint that's based on their recommendations. And when they complete it, they present that to elected officials. You can imagine a panel of 4
Oh
kids
my, wow.
that's in front of city council members, school board members, county board of supervisors, state assembly, or other individuals from the county who have an impact on policy. These students do an incredible job, and they say what their recommendations are. So we want to build our future based upon what the students want in their future. And that's what's so important, is to get that voice from students and then really match that to the priorities we have for our communities, so they have plenty of opportunities to pursue once they finish that program and then move forward in that plan the day after graduation.
Wow, there's no greater stakeholder than the student themselves telling you, this is what we see and these are some of the solutions that we want to offer. And, in this mixed environment where they're able to collaborate and work off of each other's strengths, I mean, that's just absolutely phenomenal. I absolutely love that. And this is a program you developed.
We started when I became superintendent, and the county has started the countywide vision, and they did an incredible job getting stakeholders from all over. And it was actually my wife, who at the time was overseeing our government relations department. She asked the county, she said, "What about having students involved in the countywide vision?" And they said, "That's a great idea." So we worked with Superintendent Holton and Chaffee. We were able to get a number of students to participate in the county vision. And once I saw that, I said, you know what, we should develop our countywide student advisory group. We can easily do it. We'll get the support of all of the principals and all of the districts. And the districts love it because they know that this forum is so valuable for their students to participate in. And the kids, some start as a sophomore. And then the next year when I see the group, because I always go out there and watch them, next I'll say, "Hey, you were here last year, weren't you?" And they'll say, "Yeah, I was." And some have done it 4 years. And so it's just incredible to see it. But they love that opportunity because it builds that confidence that they can really provide their recommendations. And those recommendations have changed policies. We've had school board members take it back to their full school board and actually make changes to their policy based upon what they hear from students. So it's been an incredible process.
Oh, wow. That is absolutely remarkable. It's really inspiring, actually, to know that they have the opportunity to form the future of their own education and really impact policy. It prepares them to understand the different levers and how to go through the process of actually making a true impact in their communities, especially in education, which is one of the more critical areas of everything in any society. Very inspiring, absolutely. So, Mr. Alejandre, can you please talk a little bit more about community colleges and what parents and students should know that maybe they don't know already that you would like to share with them?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I just always tell young people when cause I speak to them all the time. I say, have that plan after graduation. Know what you want to do. You have counselors here at your school, but you have other adults because every district and every high school is really trying to build the level of adult in connections with students. In fact, the student advisory, what they say over and over again when we ask them the question, what do you need from us to help you not just graduate, but have that plan the day after? They always tell us we need more positive adults that give us the guidance, that can tell us what the timelines are, who to contact, what the opportunities are, how long does it take, how much does it cost, who should I get information from? Because their parents may not have that, especially if their parents are from economically disadvantaged environments where they may not have access to it. So through programs like Avid and others that districts have implemented, they really build that information so students know really what they want to do the day after graduation. And those plans include universities. They also include community colleges. We, in all of our superintendent meetings, we invite our community college presidents to join us so that the community colleges can engage school districts. And there's this at this time, the collaboration has never been as strong as it is right now because community colleges have worked closely with high schools to have dual enrollment take place. So while a student is going to high school, they can also take a community college class and already have credits before they finish high school.
Right.
And that's amazing to see. And then I mentioned the pathways. So when I go back to those A through G courses, one of the reasons why students were not successful is some of the hardest courses that they weren't able to pass were involving math and science. And so when you have a pathway, like a health pathway, an engineering pathway, a cyber pathway, then math and science becomes more relevant because it's connected to the curriculum. And that really helps students be more successful in what they're doing. And if they like a health pathway, then they know the community college that offers that as one of the areas where they can get certification. And so they go to community college, they get certified, they get their associate's degree, and then they can go to the four-year university. And the cost is so much less. It's hardly anything compared to what a four-year university would cost. And students now see they have access because students still say, well, how am I going to get the money? And that's another area that we have our team in Avid and county schools provides opportunities for students there's one program we have called Race to Submit, so you can really get those applications into, and also providing the financial assistance so you know what kinds of grants and what kinds of financial support through completing the FAFSA that you'll now understand you're eligible for so that cost doesn't become a barrier, because that should never be a barrier.
Right.
And I'll share with you one example. I was over at in Montclair at the high school out there, and I was talking to the Avid teacher, and she had this display on her classroom wall. And there was these jars, and there was like 35 jars, and they had these little round Post-its on the jars. And some had one, but most of them had two or three. And I was a little bit farther away, and I couldn't really see what it said. I said, "What's that display?" And she goes, "Oh, come here closer. I'll show you." And so in this display, all those jars represented a student, so the student's name was there, and then those Post-its represented the colleges that already gave them acceptance letters.
Wow.
So
Oh
I
my
said, "Oh
goodness.
my gosh." I said, "This is incredible." So students already knew what their pathway was because they knew what they needed to do financially through completing the FAFSA and understanding what the issues were. They knew what was required for the application itself, and they knew that they'd already got accepted to the university. So how great is that for a high school student to be that prepared for that plan the day after graduation?
I mean, it's just absolutely remarkable. It makes me want to go back to high school and do it all over again. And the key is, like you said, it's relevance, right? And it's expanding those horizons for those students and tying those fields, those high paying fields, to the relevance to connect the students, to motivate them to go down those, math and science pathways that otherwise they wouldn't really understand. How does that what does that mean exactly? How do I connect that to my future? But when you create that pathway and that pipeline that just brings it all together, I mean, you're meeting the needs of a community, you're meeting the needs of businesses that are looking for sophisticated employees with, a robust education to really step into those roles, on a local and a regional level. So absolutely tremendous. So that leads us to the workforce development part of it. Can you please talk about how workforce development is being encouraged by the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools?
Absolutely. And there's always pathways. Many students want to go into the workforce environment, and there's many high paying jobs they can get without having a college degree. But what they'll also find is that you're always going to be a lifelong learner because today's industries always requires a level of education and learning, sometimes through the industry itself and sometimes through our university systems and community colleges. But the most important thing is to expose them to that workforce and working with our trade unions and our partners in labor, they're just ready to open the doors and have students come in and talk about apprenticeship opportunities where students can go through a paid apprenticeship program and then be employed, making really good money and having opportunities for advancement and continuing their education and other ways they can move forward. But sometimes, especially in the past, when we've had the traditional college and career days where we've had people come on to a high school and then be ready to talk to students, that's pretty intensive. It's pretty involved. It takes time for people to come in. So one thing we've learned through technology is really bringing our industries into the classroom through technology. And so we have SB Connect, where we bring in industry partners right into the classroom. So you can imagine someone from the industry going into a 12th grade classroom and having an iPad at the location of the industry and say, here's what we do in this industry, and then walking through that industry, telling students all about it so they get the experience of what the industry is, and then sharing with them, here's how much you can make, here's how to get the positions here, here's what you need to do to give kids those opportunities and options. We've also had those industries create micro internships. So they'll have their teams come in digitally to teach a 20-minute lesson on what's the most important skill you need for this industry, or what's an important skill that you need for this industry. And so having a lot of those engagements and increasing the numbers and exposures really has given students the opportunity to experience it firsthand and then really develop that plan of what they want to. But we couldn't do it without the support of our businesses and groups like IEP and others that have opened those doors to businesses has helped us really build that number of involvements and engagements that students have had with our business and industry partners.
Right. And that engagement makes these career fields that much more tangible, right? Because when they're able to interface and again, create that relation between what it is that I'm learning or what it is that I have to learn to get to this place, it just makes the perspective so much broader and so much more accessible. It's
right.
wonderful.
And they've even developed curriculum. We work closely with the carpenters and a tremendous association, and they have curriculum that they have in our high schools. And some of the curriculum, for example, the beginning stages, students can learn many aspects of carpentry, and there's not even any tools required because everything there is something they have in the classroom. And then as they advance that curriculum, then there's other types of equipment that schools can partner with them so the students can have access to it. But the whole idea is get students interested and involved. And have you ever thought about doing this? Have you ever thought about doing this? And when you have some of these professionals coming from our labor partners, they're just excited when they speak to students because they love their work, they're passionate about it, and they want students to have that opportunity.
Absolutely. Wow, that is so inspiring. So that leads us to the next part. So let's talk about how SBCSS offers instruction in the classroom. What support does SBCSS offer for instruction in the classroom, that is?
Yeah, and there's two primary things we do. One I kind of mentioned earlier with the team of professionals that we have that provide training and support for school districts to have their teachers become expert at how to deliver that instruction. And then at county schools, we have two types of programs that we serve students. Our largest population is for special education, so students with severe disabilities. They're in classrooms that are called profound, severe profound, and mod severe. And so depending upon the disability of students, they'll be in a classroom where they'll need specialized instruction. And then we have another program that we're required to serve, and that's funded through the state. And those are for students that are on probation, referred to probation, expelled, or in our juvenile detention system. So In those cases, we have teachers that are just dedicated to really turning the lives around for students so that students understand there's opportunities. For example, in juvenile hall, some students are there for maybe 3 or 4 days, some longer, depending upon the offense they have. But for a student who's there even just a couple of days, they'll walk out of our program with a food handler CPR certification so they can at least go into the workforce and start learning about becoming a person in the work environment and start to rebuild their lives and start to take advantage of opportunities to then go up the pathway into what they aspire to. And so our teachers really change lives. They transform lives because they work so closely to make that difference. Some of these students have had very difficult environments and experiences that we couldn't even imagine. But nevertheless, our teachers understand their needs and make a difference for them. And then with special education, I have to share with you, because some of the students in our severe classes, they have very little movement. Some can't talk, some can't speak. And there's one young boy, his name is Ethan. He's in a class out at Spirius, 12-year-old boy. He can't move, he can't speak. And they've tried different devices with him because for some students, we're able to give devices that we can attach to, for example, their head because they do have a little bit of head movement where they can select things on the computer screen that have meaning. So our teachers teach them symbols and icons that have meaning and language, and students understand what they mean. And so when they want to communicate, they can identify that to have that communication. But for Ethan, none of that worked. And then we were able to find a device. It was called a Tobii Dynavax. And this device really focuses on eye gaze movement. So by having the student look into the computer screen, he was able to identify words and meaning to start communicating. And for the first time, he told his mom he loved her.
Oh my goodness.
And she was just so blown away. She couldn't believe it because he never said that. And she was so excited because she never had that opportunity to communicate with her own child. So can you imagine as a mother not being able to communicate to your child, and now you can? How incredible that must be.
What an incredible blessing. You know, the things that many of us take for granted. And so for a school system to be able to offer those resources to make that possible is absolutely inspiring. So it makes it no surprise that you have been selected as the Superintendent of the Year for the state of California. So in addition to all of those amazing programs and things that you are doing to support our students, please talk about the criteria and the things that are considered with that prestigious award.
Oh, thank you so much. And I was really honored to receive the Superintendent of the Year Award by the Association of California School Administrators, which represents all the administrators in the state of California. So we have about a little over 1,000 school districts, and all the school districts are eligible to select a superintendent as the region's superintendent of the year. There are 19 regions in the state, so there's 19 individuals that are selected. So for our example, we have 33 districts. And I was selected out of the 33 districts to be the Superintendent of the Year for San Bernardino County. And the other 19 regions do the same thing with their districts. And the 19 that are selected by the state, and they determined the one person, and they selected me. And just a real honor. And I really owe it to the incredible team we have here at County Schools that's doing phenomenal work with our school districts. Like I mentioned, the special ed, but I can go on and on and on about the leaders we have in our group. Today, we had a meeting with all of our strategic plan initiative leads, and they were talking about what they've accomplished and what they're moving forward with. And I could just see the passion and dedication they have in supporting our school districts and our students. They want our county to be the best. They want our students to strive. They want our communities to strive. They live here in our communities. They want this to be a place where they want their own children to go to the schools and excel. And so it's really a team effort, and I'm just very proud and fortunate to be the lead of our team.
Absolutely. Wow. What a wonderful recognition, and absolutely given to the right person. So please talk about your team, what you look for in your team members for SBCSS, and please talk about your vision for the future.
Oh, thank you. Our team is incredible, and we have about 2,400 employees that work at county schools. And whenever we select someone for a position, particularly in management and lead positions, we always look at someone who's intrinsically motivated to serve our community, someone who's passionate at really making the best effort to make sure our students succeed, someone who can go into a school district, and the school district will right away say, God, that person's incredible. I love him or her being here because they really help us. And that is a huge priority for us. And the feedback I get from superintendents is always the same. God, your team is great. They really provide a lot of support. They don't come in and criticize. They really try to do what they can to align our efforts to what we want as our priorities and some of the best strategies and techniques to do that. And so we're looking for those kind of team members. And in fact, I mentioned I meet with superintendents regularly. Every month we have a meeting. And what we do at our meetings is we share best practices. So when I talk about, for example, that A through G completion rate, for example, Chapey was at the top. And so Superintendent Holton brought his team. I said, hey, Matt, can you bring your team in to talk to the rest of the district so they can know what you're doing? You're successful, incredibly successful. He said, sure, no problem. So he brought his team in, and everybody sees what they're doing, and they all gain so much. We all say to each other that the answers aren't outside of our county. They're really here in our county. We just have to identify them and then replicate them, really showcase them to others so that other districts can take advantage of the teams that we have. And all of our superintendents, you think 33 school districts from Needles to Upland to Chino Hills, you think, do they know each other? I can tell you this, they know each other on a first name basis because we're all such a tight group of superintendents and we all work together and we all are the same. We want the best people. Sometimes someone from a district will buy the county and so they say, hey, you stole one of our best people. But then sometimes some people here want to go into the district and but it's at any point, we all just are really grateful that we have such high caliber individuals serving our schools. And moving into the future, what our immediate priority is really to have that accelerated recovery because COVID, we did go on this pause. Teachers were incredible about trying to provide, really strong distance learning programs, and they worked incredibly hard to make that. But it's difficult in a distance learning environment. So now that we're back in person, we want to accelerate our efforts so we can get back to where we were just accelerating forward and making a huge difference across our county.
Beautiful. Well, with the team that you've established, I see that happening. No problem. Thank you so much for joining us today, Superintendent Alejandre.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed being here.
All right, everybody. For everyone that's listening, don't forget to look for us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Check us out on scbrtalk.com. And don't forget to download the live streaming app on Google Play or the Apple App Store. Don't miss my interview with Chief Stringham of Copline, who joined the LASD in 1982 as a deputy sheriff trainee. He graduated from the academy in 1983 and went on to work as a deputy in various capacity at multiple units. He began as a module deputy and prowler at the Hall of Justice jail facility. He would later move on to be a bailiff at court services, a patrol deputy, field training officer, jailer, and dispatcher at Industry Station, as well as a background investigator and staff instructor at Training Bureau. In 1997, Chief Stringham promoted to the rank of sergeant and transferred to Temple Station, where he served as a patrol sergeant and a training sergeant. After 3 years, he briefly transferred to Sheriff's Headquarters Bureau as the Media Relations and Training Sergeant before being promoted to Lieutenant in 2000 and transferring to Lakewood Station. While at Lakewood Station, he served as a watch commander and the Detective Bureau commander. In 2003, he transferred to Regional Community Policing Institute, where he performed the roles of Program Director, Federal Grant Administrator for COPS Office Grants. Chief Stringham transferred to Contract Law in 2007 as a member of the Office of Public Safety Merger Study Team, and in 2008 moved to be an executive aide for Leadership and Training Division. Chief Stringham was promoted to Captain of County Services Bureau in 2009, where he remained as the unit commander until his retirement in 2015. In December of 2018, Chief Stringham accepted an offer to return to LASD at the rank of chief. He currently oversees Countywide Services Division, which is comprised of County Services Bureau, Parks Bureau, Community Colleges Bureau, and Community Partnerships Bureau. Next week, we will have Maria Fernanda Trochimezuk, Founder and Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at iOS Scholarships. Maria Fernanda is passionate about making diversity a norm as she advocates for the empowerment of underrepresented STEM students from racially, culturally, and linguistically diverse backgrounds. As the founder of iOS Scholarships, she is committed to building the diverse and inclusive STEM workforce the world needs by matching undergraduate and graduate students with life-changing scholarships and internship opportunities. Born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, she arrived to UCSB and won over $250,000 in scholarships to pursue her education. Since then, she has devoted her energy to helping more underserved students find free money to go to college. She has been featured in just about every major Hispanic media outlet, including Univision, Telemundo, NBC Latino, Mundo Fox, CNN en Español, Diversity and STEAM Magazine, Hispanic Network Magazine, Black EOE Journal, and Professional Women's Magazine. Don't miss it next week, friends. We will see you then.
This has been the Southern California Business Report with Yvette Walker on KMET 1490 AM, FM 98.1, and ABC News Radio affiliate, a show dedicated to highlighting successful Southern California